my recording button's taking a little while. There we go. It finally came on. All right. So thank you for joining us today. For those of you that are on the call that I might not know, my name is Kim Shafer, and I am the Regional League Manager that partners with the Indiana, Michigan, Northern, and Southern Ohio PGA sections. And so first thing I want to do is I want to give a huge thank you and shout out to those 4 sections. I work really closely with their section staffs, and they have come together to make these next 3 webinars happen so that everyone can have that opportunity to learn together. So I want to encourage you to participate. Feel free to unmute and jump in and ask a question at any single time. And I also have put in the chat box a link to all of the summary of the changes for the 2021 PGA Junior League season. So you can go in there and look and see those as well. So today we're going to discuss all the changes that you need to know as you're preparing for your 2021 season. And the first thing that I want you to know is that our National PGA Junior League team and all of your section staffs, we work really, really closely together to make constant improvements to the program. So we have a very kind of open mindset, a growth mindset. We are always listening to all of your recommendations and all of your suggestions and your feedback, and we want to make sure that the program is getting better every single year. So when we look at that, we want to make sure that if there's something that doesn't work, you know what? Hey, that's okay. If something doesn't work, we'll sit back, we'll evaluate it, we'll figure out a new way to go, a new path, we'll recalibrate, and we'll go down that direction. So we're very open to new ideas and ways for improvement. So you will notice literally every single day here in my house, I have an empty piece of paper and a pen sitting right there, because literally every time I talk to a pro, if they say something that I think is valuable feedback, whether it's positive or negative, I write it down and I share it with our national team, and we look at every bit of feedback that we get. So any time that a section staff or a pro reaches out to us, we're really listening. We want the program to be as good as it can be. The one thing we also really look at is those end of the year surveys. So surveys from both the pros and from the players and the parents and the families that are involved in the program. And we really, really take a deep dive into those surveys and try to figure out what's working and what's not working each year. So this was a very unique year for us when we went to look at changes for 2021. There was a lot that happened in 2020. And there were so many of our golf professionals that did an amazing job of adapting to what the COVID world had presented them with for 2020. And what we learned as we looked at 2020 was there were a lot of golf pros that were very successfully operating their programs in a healthy way, and they were doing it in a way that in a normal PGA Junior League year would have been considered what I'm going to call not official, meaning they would not have met for their league, they would not have met the requirements to be able to participate in the postseason events if we had had a postseason last year. And so when we started looking at that, we found that there were a lot of smaller leagues that were forming, and that they were using last year as a year of great flexibility. So for example, we had some facilities that maybe they had, 24 kids, and instead of creating, 2 large teams of 12 each, they might have done, 4 teams of 6 each. And that worked really, really well for them. So there was a lot of different ways that they were constructing their team structure for their in-house leagues or even for their travel leagues, which were significantly maybe smaller than what they had seen in the past. So when we looked at 2020, we actually saw a lot of great things. And the feedback for 2020 was actually the most positive feedback we've ever had for the program. And a lot of the feedback came back saying that they loved the flexibility that they had last year to basically create the program how they wanted it at their facility. And so when we started looking at 2021, we were thinking, everything that we're doing for 2021 needs to keep that level of flexibility because it's working and it's allowing more facilities to actually be involved. So when we look at changing rules, we wanted to produce rules that were going to encourage participation, not rules that were going to serve as roadblocks and prevent any facilities from being able to participate. So all of the changes that came about this year were, let's encourage flexibility in our local leagues, and let's encourage participation by lowering some of those minimum numbers that you need to be official to participate in that postseason experience. So there's really three main things that you'll find for the rules changes for 2021. And they were built for three reasons. One is just to create more flexibility for the local leagues so that the professionals have the opportunity to operate their league in a way that works best for them. And then number two is to update the all-star policies so that they are in alignment with the American Development Model standards. And then three is to introduce section and regional championships for the 17U division, which is really starting to grow, and being able to provide that division with some kind of end of the year culmination events that will give them some strong memories from the program. So those are the three different areas that you'll see that the changes occurred for this year. And I'm going to kind of do just what you're probably going to do is I'm just going to go right down this document, and I'm going to just very slowly go over each change, explain it, make sure that you understand it, tell you kind of why that change took place, and then give you the opportunity to, reach out and either ask more questions or share your feedback, whatever works for you. So the first change that we have here is in the 13 and 17U in that local league structure. So for 2021, the official league minimum has actually been lowered. So in previous years, you needed to have 32 players in either an in-house or a travel league to be eligible to compete in the postseason events. This year, for both in-house and travel or multi-facility leagues, you only need to have 24 players in your league to be able to play in the postseason events and be eligible for those postseason events. So with 24 players, if you were doing your own in-house league, you could have 2 teams of 12. You could have 3 teams of 8. You could have 4 teams of 6, however you wanted to make that happen. Same thing for a travel or a multi-facility league. You can have lots of different, if you had 2 teams with 12 kids each and you were playing against one another for the regular season, you'd be eligible for the postseason. That number is now 24 instead of 32. The other thing that's flexible is the matches per game that you play can be adjusted up or down depending on the number of players that show up for each game day. Now, this is something that we'll talk about in our league conference calls, because if you're in a multi-facility league, we need for all of the captains to agree that they want to do that. And so that way everybody's on the same page. But so for example, let's say Team A shows up to a game with 15 kids and Team B shows up to a game with 16 kids. Well, instead of just playing your normal 4 matches where those kids would all have a lot of substituting in and out, and maybe a lot of them would only get to play 6 holes, if, and especially in a COVID world, if you're trying to keep less kids in a group together and you wanted to set out, 7 matches for that game day instead of 4 matches for that game day so that there's less kids and less families gathered in a group, and you believe that it might be a healthier environment, or simply that you just want your kids to have more playing time, so they're playing 9 holes instead of 6 holes. You may choose to play 7 matches on that game day instead of the standard 4 matches. Or the opposite is true. If Team A has 6 kids show up for a game day and Team B has 7 kids show up, you can just play 3 matches that day. You don't have to feel like you have to play those 4 matches. So you have that ability to move the number of matches up and down depending on the number of players that show up on those game days. You can also institute shorter flags, and especially for younger or new players. So one thing that we saw a lot of in 2020 was facilities that were having much younger kids participate. They were all coming out as a family, and the younger kids really wanted to be involved, and quite frankly, there was nothing else for them to do in a COVID year. So those pros said, absolutely, come along. And so what they did was they created a younger division, maybe for even like 4 to 9-year-olds. And instead of having them play a 9-hole match or a 9-hole game, they might have them play just 6 holes. Or maybe they even just played 4 holes. And they would put them, instead of a 3-hole flag, it would be a 2-hole flag. And so if they played a 4-hole game, they would have basically 2 flags that would be available for every 2 holes. So there's a lot of flexibility there for how you can structure your game days and for how you can structure kind of the size of your teams for how you might like to do that for the local league level. It really is empowering the captains to be able to organize their leagues in a manner that works best for them. Before I kind of go on any further, those are the key changes for the local league level. Is there any questions about that or concerns or feedback at all that anybody would like to chime in with before I head to the next topic? No worries. We're going to keep on going. So the next thing that we're going to talk about is 17U. And so 17U is basically, I feel like it's kind of in the infancy of its growth. When 13U started about 8 years ago now or so, that very first year that it started, there was like 1,500 kids nationwide that were in the 13U division. Now, prior to COVID in 2019, we had over 60,000 kids playing PGA Junior League. So that's a massive amount of growth, okay? In 2019, prior to COVID, we had 6,000 kids that participated in the 17U division. So the 17U division is starting to grow and it's starting to take off. We actually saw a decent amount of players in 2020 with 17U. Especially in the fall, they didn't have a lot of sports that were available, and so they had several facilities run 17U programs. So we're really starting to see an uptick in the number of 17U players that are interested in PGA Junior League. And as a result of that, the national committee looked at it, and they really wanted to offer those 17U players some postseason events that would kind of just be a great culmination of everything that they've done for the season and a great way for them to end the year. So for 2021, there will be both section and regional championships offered for the 17U division. Now, there will not be a national championship in 2021. I and the team, we could absolutely see a future where we add in a national championship. For this year, they want to kind of see what happens. Let's start with the section and the regionals. Let's see what happens. Let's see how much growth we get. Is there enough growth to support both the section and regional events? And if there is, then let's look forward to that next year and see what might come of it. So those are just a couple things there that you can look forward to for the 17U division this year. The other thing with the postseason this year, and so this is going to be, I'm going to kind of swivel back and forth between 13U and 17U. But the league eligibility, I want to go over for both divisions for 2021. So in order for a league to be eligible to host an all-star team in the 13U division, that is now that new 24 players that I mentioned earlier. So 24 active players, you may participate in the postseason. For the 17U division, in order to participate in the postseason, for 2021, you would need 8 or more active players to participate in the postseason. So even at your one single facility, you might be able to get 8 17U players just at your facility, have your own small in-house league, and then participate in the postseason with your own 17U All-Star team. Now, keep in mind, that is just for 2021. For 2022, the 17U requirement is actually going to be increased, and it's going to be increased up to 16 players in 2022. So for 2021, they put it at 8 because they really want to encourage participation and getting those first kids involved and getting those first all-star teams out there and playing together. Now, as far as player eligibility goes, for the 13U division, all-star players must be no younger than 10 years of age and no older than 13 years of age as of July 31st, okay? Now, this is a change because in the past, that the no older than 13 years of age on that date, that has always been the case. But in the past, you could have younger kids, like you could have 8 or 9-year-olds participating in those all-star events. The reason for this change, where they now must be at least 10 years old, is due to the American development model that was created for golf. And there's been a lot of childhood experts and psychologists and all sorts of people that came together to create that American development model for golf. And basically, to align with them and make sure that our kids are doing age-appropriate activities. And according to the American Development Model, kids that are under the age of 10 are still in what they call the fundamental stage. And the fundamental stage is focusing on having fun and improving and being with your team and increasing your social skills. And at under the age of 10, they do not recommend that these kids are playing highly competitive scores where you're pitting them against each other and traveling to play in large events. And so we want to honor the findings from that American development model and align perfectly with them. That way we feel confident that we're doing what's best for those kids at those ages. And according to the American development model, by doing so, that will also help prevent any sort of burnout by the kids once they get to a little bit older age. So this year, for the 13U to be eligible, you can be no younger than 10 and no older than 13 as of July 31st. For the 17U division, for those all-star players, you must be no younger than 14 years of age and no older than 17 years of age on July 31st. So we have the 2 different age requirements for the 2 different divisions. Now, the team sizes for the all-star teams this year. So for 13U, in the past, the team size was 10 players, so you would have 10 all-star players. So if you were in an in-house league, you would have 10 of your own players. If you were in a travel league, you would have 10 players representing the entire multi-facility league, where every single team, every single facility that was in that league has at least one all-star team player that goes and represents their facility on that all-star team. Now this year, that has been lowered. So it's been lowered from 10 players to 8 players that are going to be on the all-star team for this year. Now, what that does is, number one, it eliminates the substitutes. So if you're playing 4 matches per game, which you will be in the postseason events, all 8 players will be playing the entire 9 holes, and there will be no substitutes. The other thing that it does is it accommodates the new smaller league sizes. So what I mean by that is, in the past, there was a minimum of 32 players to have an all-star team. And 10 out of 32 players was basically 31% of the league that would have that opportunity to go and be an all-star player. We had a lot of leagues that had a really hard time getting 10 players on their team. Kids had other commitments that they were trying to fulfill, or they might have had a league that had a lot of beginners, and a lot of those beginners were not comfortable being in an all-star team situation. So we had a lot of leagues that really struggled to actually get 10 players. So with now the league requirement being 24 players to be an official league and be able to be in the all-star postseason experience, that has been lowered down to 8, because 8 out of 24 players is still 33% of the league that would be eligible to go on to be an all-star player. And that kind of aligns with the 31% that there was previously. So we believe that will make it a little bit easier for the smaller leagues now to fill their all-star teams. So as I look through all of that, I'm trying to make sure I didn't leave anything out. I think that's everything for the 13U and 17U, the postseason structure part of it. Any questions or comments or anything that anybody would like to say about that particular portion of the changes for this year?
Hey, Kim, it's Crystal. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
Perfect. Hey, I just had a quick question since I'm kind of thinking about how I'm structuring my teams. So in the past for the in-house league, I believe, or at least I've done it in the past, I can't remember if it's actually been a rule, I've taken one all-star from each team. So if I had 4 teams, I had to pick like one all-star from each team. The way that you I know I've talked to you that I'm kind of restructuring my teams, I'm kind of doing it by age this year. Is that going to, I don't know, I'm thinking of like, so if I have like an 8U team or a 9U team, obviously I can't pick an all-star from that team. I don't know, am I going to be kind of, I guess, breaking the rules there? Is there any stipulations where, like, if I have maybe 4, 5, or 6 different teams on my in-house league, like, do I need to pick an all-star from each team?
So I'm really glad you asked that question, Crystal. So in the past, the answer to that would be yes. So like in the past, if you had 6 teams in your in-house league, you would need to have at least one child from each of those 6 teams, okay? This year, for an in-house league only, you may just select the 8 players that you want to be on your all-star team. They don't necessarily have to be from any of your particular teams coming out of an in-house league. Now, for a multi-facility league, every single team will still need to have at least one player represented on the all-star team. Does that make sense?
Yes, thank you. No, that's perfect. I was kind of worried about it because I was like, oh no. Like,
right, exactly.
Structured, I can't really do that. So no, that's perfect. Thank you.
Okay, absolutely. Yeah, any other questions from anybody on that portion of it?
Yeah, Kim, this is Brad over at Railside. I'm a little bit new to everything just because it's my first really. Going into the postseason with the lowering from 10 to 8 players, that doesn't affect something within the normal and regular season. Like if I were to field a team of 12 players, that's perfectly fine because I know I'm going to have many playing in and out that are going to be away for certain weeks.
Yes.
So,
yeah, actually, that you're 100% correct, Brad. It doesn't. The postseason All-Stars does not affect the size of your regular season teams at all. So, for example, Brad, I have some teams that will have the minimum of 8 because that's all they could get. They recruited as hard as they could, and they got 8 players. And then I'll have some teams that really like to have large teams. So I have some people that will have one team, and they'll have 18 kids on one team. And obviously, they do a lot of substituting on that team, and they have a lot of substitutes that go in and out during the regular season. So, the substitutions are 100% still allowed and encouraged during the regular season play and local play, but just that only the all-star team sizes has been reduced, and that's the only part of it that's been reduced. I hope that makes sense.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Okay, perfect. Great. Any other questions on that segment? Okay, we will move right along. The last real change for this year is, for the first time ever, there is going to be a postseason fee structure. Now, for your section championships, there will still not be any sort of per player fee for any all-star players. So all of your local leagues may, if they qualify, may go and play in those section championships, and there will be no fees incurred by any of the team members on those all-star teams. New for this year, at both the regional and the national championships, there will be per player fees. And the biggest reason for this is going to be really, really obvious, and it's budgetary constrictions. And it has gotten to the point where it is just virtually impossible for the National PGA Junior League team to provide the same level of experience that they have been at those postseason events without charging any sort of fee. And I will tell you, because I've run a lot of regionals and I've also been to the national championship on several occasions, those events are absolutely, positively, over the top amazing. And so in order to maintain that kind of memorable experience for those kids, they have gone through the budget repeatedly and they've come up with some new per player fees for each of those. So for example, for the regional, every all-star team that qualifies for a regional, there will be a $200 per player fee. Now, that $200, that includes all of the golf for the regional weekend. So that includes a practice round and 2 days of competition. It includes a welcome reception, a lunch on the Saturday round, and then all of the awards that will be given out. Now, for the national championship, there will be an entry fee of $500 per player. That $500 at the national championship, that includes all of the golf, which is 2 practice rounds and 3 days of full competition. It includes 5 nights of lodging for that player and their family at the Fairmont Princess Hotel. It includes ground transportation, so there's no need for them to rent any sort of transportation whatsoever. It includes a welcome reception. It includes, I think, all but 2 meals for the whole time that they're there. And it includes all of the uniforms and the gifts and the awards and everything. When they research this out, that is actually still significantly below what other youth sports, like, for example, Little League, hockey, for some of their major end-of-the-season culmination events. Those are still very low fees per player compared to a lot of those other sports. So while we certainly understand nobody ever is happy about having to pay any sort of fee, we do hope that the quality of the experience will outweigh that. And we are putting together, basically, for those teams that make it to that level, kind of putting together suggestions for how to fundraise and potentially help make that fee a little bit less for each family that's incurring those fees as they travel to go play in those events. Any questions or anything about the new postseason fee structure?
Hey, Kim, it's Stacey.
Yes.
One that just came to my mind, is there because I can't remember, since we didn't have it last year, is the parents have to pay something, or is that still, because normally a parent got to go with them, is that still like part of that fee, or is there going to be an additional fee for the parents for postseason that are traveling with the kids?
So there's no fee for the parents to go. They would need to pay like their own airfare.
Okay.
But they provide them with basically, where we stayed at the Fairmont Princess the last time we were there, they're the biggest, hugest hotel room, like almost suites. And so the whole family can easily stay in there. And so they assign, each child gets one of those, and then however many family members they want to bring, they can bring. The family members would just be responsible for getting their airfare there. But all of the transportation, whether you bring one family member or 5, all of the transportation and the vast majority of the meals for those families are all covered.
Okay, thanks. I couldn't remember how it was with the families and that, so thank you.
Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah, any other questions really, that was actually the last thing I had to cover for all of the new changes for this year. So any other questions about any of those changes at all? Okay. And if you do have questions, you can always reach out to myself or any of your section staffs, as we're always happy to help. I do want to share with you before we go, I do want to share with you a couple of trends that we're already seeing for the 2021 season. First of all, super positive news is we actually have more facilities registered at this point in the year than we have at this point in any other previous PGA Junior League season. So we're actually up 30% right now, which is amazing. So I think that we're going to see a lot of facilities participating this year, and we're starting to see a bunch of new facilities jump on board for PGA Junior League. And, you know, when we look at 2021, the other thing that we're seeing is we're starting to see a significant increase in the number of in-house leagues that are being offered. And, you know, even from my perspective in my own region, facilities that have been in travel leagues for a really, really long time. I mean, really since the inception of the program. They've been in travel leagues for 7 or 8 years. They are deciding to do in-house leagues this year. And I think for multiple reasons. Number one is there, and I'm sure you all noticed, there's a huge boom and a huge interest in golf right now. COVID has made golf one of the forefront sports that everybody feels like they can be in a healthy environment when they go to the golf course. And you can physically distance from your playing partners and feel like you're being socially responsible and in that healthy atmosphere. So we're seeing a huge increase just in the number of people that are playing golf, but also in the number of families that are playing golf. And as a result, I'm having a lot of facilities tell me, hey, you know, in the past, I had a hard time, you know, getting 15 kids. You know, this year, I think I'm going to have 30. And they're like, you know, we don't know how to handle that many kids, so we think we're going to keep it in-house because it will be that much easier for us to do an in-house league. The other reason that a lot of people are doing the in-house league this year is they're telling me that some of their families really enjoyed doing an in-house league last year. And like last year, they were kind of forced to do an in-house league because the rest of the teams that were in their travel league chose not to participate due to COVID. So we had some facilities that did participate and just did their own in-house league. And they said, you know, our families actually told us they liked that better. And they liked all coming to the same facility, and they trust me, their golf professional, to provide them a healthy atmosphere to come and play golf. But they're a little bit leery or a little bit worried about possibly going to another facility. And will that other facility be following the same COVID guidelines that we're following? And they said that their families just told them that they are more comfortable and actually prefer to stay just at home, at their home facility. So we are seeing a huge uptick in the number of in-house leagues already, as well as a huge increase in the number of new facilities that are joining the program this year. I think all of those are great things. I think we're going to have a really good year. I'm super excited about this year. And I encourage anybody that's on the call today, if you do have questions, feel free to reach out to us because we are happy to help at any point in time. I just noticed in the chat area here, Crystal says, we actually had one of our PGA Junior League players and her family upgrade from social to full golf membership. So perfect, exactly. And I'm glad you brought that up, Crystal, because I've actually seen that a lot this year where people have told me that due to PGA Junior League, their entire family decided to either join the club or go from social to golf membership because of that family aspect that PGA Junior League provides. I have covered all the changes that were on the agenda for the day. I do want to make you aware that not next week, because next week is kind of the PGA show's virtual week, but in 2 weeks, we are going to be doing our next webinar with all 4 sections together. That webinar is going to be on the power of in-house leagues, and that is February 5th at 10 a.m. And then on February 12th at 10 a.m., we're going to be doing another webinar with all 4 sections, and that one is going to basically be on the COVID guidelines and a lot of best practices from professionals for how they handled the 2020 COVID environment and how they feel like they were able to provide a good, healthy environment for their families. Jimmy, I see you raise your hand. Do you have a question or a comment?
I do have a question, or maybe this new thing that's coming out on an email I see, like Club Golf. It's an 18-hole, and they're saying it's a non-competitive thing to PGA Junior League. Can I get your take on that, or PGA Junior League's take on that?
Yes, so I have, actually our team talked about that recently. It's basically a whole brand new, I don't know if company is the right word, but program that's being developed called basically like a club golf. And it's my understanding, and Jimmy, you correct me if I'm wrong, because I'm not super well versed in what they're doing, but I believe it's my understanding is that they're actually trying to kind of do the opposite of PGA Junior League. And what I mean by that is PGA Junior League is, you know, let's open up for everybody. We want to get tons of new golfers, and you know let's include everybody, and you know, public and private, and you know, everything in between. And there's not a single person on the planet that's not invited for PGA Junior League and to come out and play. And it's my understanding that the club league that they're talking about is actually more of an elite group, where I think it's more where one facility gets like their, and I don't even know how many kids it is. I don't know if it's 8, 10, I don't know how many kids, but they get like their absolute best kids from their one facility, and then they go and they compete in, I don't know if it's tournaments or games or whatnot, but it's a very high level golf. It would be for expert golfers, you know, not beginner golfers. So I think, you know, for somebody that has a lot of really good golfers and they want that extra competitive experience, I think that would be perfect for some kids that would like to have a team golf experience that was at a very high level. That would be great for them. So I think it's kind of the opposite. Like maybe you would have, you know, a PGA Junior League program where you get everybody involved, and then maybe you have some of your kids from your PGA Junior League program that become expert golfers. And then maybe you would want to take that expert golf team and put them into the club league, so that then those kids have something that helps them continue with their competitive, you know, environment. That is what I know about it. Does that sound familiar to what you've heard?
Yeah, thanks for clearing that up a little bit too. It sounded like a little more competitive. I'll stick with the fun PGA Junior League.
There you go. So, yeah, great question. Anything else that anybody would like to talk about today? Okay, so I encourage you, 2 weeks, come back, join us for the in-house league. We're going to have 2 great guest speakers, pros from within these 4 sections, sharing their best practices from in-house leagues. And then on the 12th, we're going to have the COVID guidelines and best practices, so we hope you'll be able to join us for both of those webinars. I thank you for coming today, and I hope everybody has a great day, and we will see you in 2 weeks. So take care.
Jim, before we hop off the call here, I do have one question regarding, it was mentioned right at the beginning of the meeting. It was something about how teams can adjust how many matches that take place, but it's something that the captains must decide.
Yes. So, for example, you know, if on game day your team shows up with 14 kids and the other team shows up with 15 kids, if you were to read the official rule book of PGA Junior League, it would say on game day that you would play 4 matches. So that means you would have, you know, a lot of substitutes going in and out on those game days. So if you and the other captains in your league, if you all come to an agreement that, hey, on game days, you know, we don't have to stick with just 4 matches. We can create as many matches as we want based off the number of kids that show up that day. Then your league could choose to do that. And so you might have 7 matches on that game day. But that's something that we would want the whole league to agree upon, because, and that's what we'll discuss during our league conference calls too, Brad. So that way everybody's together and they can discuss that. Because what we wouldn't want is we wouldn't want 2 teams to show up on a game day one captain believing that, 4 matches is set in stone, and then the other captain believing that there's flexibility. So that's why we say everybody has to agree, because we don't want our captains in the middle of a game day, for lack of a better word, arguing about whether they're going to play, 4 games or 4 matches or 7 matches on game day. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that does. And then one more thing, can you link me the resource for that development model that you're talking about?
Yes, actually, if I'm going to stick it right here, if you just go to PGA, actually, Chelsea, I see you right there. Can you put that link in there? My screen just froze up on me for a second here. She's going to put a link in the chat area right there. If you visit pga.coach, you can go in and you can do the entire training process and learn all about the American Development Model for Golf. And when you do that, first of all, it'll take about 3 hours. There's 7 different ages and stages of development that are listed there. It'll take you about 3 hours to go through the training and learn about every one of those different stages. It's free, completely no charge at all. You do get 3 MSRs for completing it. Once you complete that, the thing that I love, Brad, is you get access to the PGA Coach Mobile App. And on that mobile app, they have, hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of activities for each one of those stages of development. So let's say you've got some 8 to 10-year-olds coming out for a clinic. You could easily pull up that app and find a bunch of different activities that you could do for a clinic with kids ages 8 to 10, and you'll be confident knowing that it's age appropriate and designed specifically for their stage of development. So I highly encourage anybody who has not gone through the American Development Training to go visit the PGA.coach website, and then you can learn all about it there. And Chelsea put that link in the chat channel, so you can grab that link right there.
All right, thank you.
Absolutely. Yeah, any other questions from anybody? That was a good one. Okay. Well, again, thank you, everybody, and hopefully we'll see all of you again in 2 weeks. Take care.